Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy Monday. We've got a great show for you today. We're back in the chairs to discuss the news. Hello, Lindsay.
Hello, how you doing? Good morning. A good Monday?
Yeah, it's fine. It's a little chilly out there,
It is.
I'm a little tired from my weekend revelry as usual, but here we are.
We have this running thing where I tell Robby, and the whole control room tells Robby we're matching, and we really probably aren't. But today I think we're actually in the same wheelhouse.
I'm wearing a tie of the same color as your...
We would be in the same hue, Roy G. Biv area situation.
I'll grant you that one.
Coming up on Rising, Senator Rand Paul is blasting the Trump administration for what he calls extrajudicial killings taking place in the Caribbean Sea.
Plus, President Trump has stopped trade talks with Canada after our northern neighbors ran an ad where Ronald Reagan had denounced tariffs.
And some lawmakers are calling for more regulation in the sports betting world after the latest NBA gambling scandal. But first, of course, we start with Robby. What's on your radar?
Well, Kamala Harris is ready for her comeback. That's right, the candidate who has shown no particular talent for winning national presidential elections or even achieving the nomination of her own party via Democratic means is very likely going to run again in 2028. She said as much in a recent interview with the BBC.
Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not.
But you say in your book, I'm not done.
That is correct. I am not done. I have lived my entire career a life of service, and it's in my bones. And there are many ways to serve. I've not decided yet what I will do in the future beyond what I am doing right now.
But you've been very clear that it's a possibility you might run again to become president. And in my experience interviewing politicians, when someone says I'm not done, it means they are thinking seriously about running.
Yep, she's running. And if Harris was giving up on her quest for the presidency, well, she would have ruled it out explicitly by now. She's clearly leaving the door open because she's going to walk through it. So my question is this: why? Why on earth would she put herself through this again? What was true in the last election cycle and was true in 2019 remains true now. Kamala Harris is a very, very weak candidate for the Democratic Party. When she pursued the presidency in 2019, her campaign faltered so badly from the start. She demonstrated no real ability to connect with some significant constituency of the Democratic Party and then dropped out before the primaries really got underway. And in 2024, the only reason she became the candidate is because Biden dropped out and handpicked her as his replacement, and then Democratic elites coalesced around her. Now, if we lived under a system where a small number of wealthy, influential, liberal power brokers selected the next president, then yes, Harris would be an obvious frontrunner. Fortunately for her, ultimately the American people decide, and we've already decided that Harris is not very appealing. Don't take my word for it. Here was Bernie Sanders recently lamenting the failures of the Harris campaign to offer an agenda that was attractive to working class people.
Whether or not you stand up and say, you know what, I am prepared to take on big money. I am prepared to stand with the working class. We are prepared, to transform our healthcare system to guarantee healthcare to all people. I didn't hear. I mean, the things that she said kind of reluctantly, some of us pushed her very hard. I think it's very hard to say that Kamala Harris ran a campaign that spoke to the needs of the working class and was prepared to take on corporate greed and the oligarchs.
On the other hand, Senator Ruben Gallego, who's seen as more of a moderate Democrat, does not want to be on the record straightforwardly opposing Kamala in 2028. So here's his view on her potential candidacy.
Do you think that Vice President Kamala Harris would be a strong candidate in 2028?
I thought she was a strong candidate in 2024. I think there's a lot of strong candidates in 2028. I think she would be a strong candidate also in 2028. And that's going to be left up to the primary voter to decide.
But would you encourage Vice President Kamala Harris to run?
I would probably talk to a lot of candidates and see where they are. I can't say I'll encourage her right now because I want to see what her policy positions are, make sure they align with the voters of Arizona, make sure it's a winning message. But I wouldn't rule it out.
And I would expect most of the Democratic establishment to sound a similar note because, aside from Bernie, they are not too keen to say no to a bad idea. They don't want to alienate who exactly? Who is out there clamoring for Kamala? I'm confused. And who will be profoundly disappointed if she does not run? The truth is that the best thing for the Democratic Party would be if someone could persuade Harris to sit this one out. Her best chance of becoming president was the brief period of time immediately following Biden dropping out, at which point her poll numbers were markedly better than Biden's and maybe competitive with Trump. But then the more she campaigned, the more she revealed her own views on policy, the more she talked at all, viewers liked less and less of what they saw and of what they heard. A big part of campaigning and also serving in office is being an effective communicator, one whose words resonate. Harris does not excel at this. She's often quite boring to listen to. She gives long, rambling, disjointed answers. She's painfully slow to get to her point. Here she was in that recent BBC interview describing her views on Biden's fitness.
Let's be more precise. There is a very serious difference between capacity to be president of the United States and the capacity to run for president of the United States. And so it is on that latter piece that I talk about in the book, about my concern about his ability with the level of endurance, energy that it requires, especially running against now the current president.
Does anybody else find that difficult to listen to, or is it just me? She endlessly stretches the very simple point she was making, which wasn't even a very good point. Obviously, if Biden was not fit to campaign, then he was not fit to serve as president. Campaigning is, yes, a strenuous job. It's not more strenuous than being president, which requires constant and skillful, complex negotiations with other political leaders, both foreign and domestic. There are some important things going on in the world. I'd like my president to be able to handle them. Obviously, now mark my words, if leading voices within the Democratic Party do not encourage Harris to think very, very carefully about whether she's really the right person to go up against J.D. Vance in all likelihood in 2028, they are going to regret it for their own electoral stakes.
I gotta say, solid radar, my friend.
Thank you.
Very thought-provoking, entertaining. I laughed a few times. I will say that the Republican Party understands this, right? President Trump lost in 2020 and then won in 2024. There was a sour taste in many people's mouths, even in the Republican Party, that did not want to see him on that ballot, especially not at the top of it once again. And so I think we have to allow that same breath and space that we gave to President Trump to do whatever he's going to do. Now, while I think that there possibly could be better options out there, I do think that she had a momentum that we can't compare exactly to when she primaried against Biden, because she didn't have that same momentum. People now saw her out there. Some people were upset that she lost, even though President Trump won. Obviously, it was very clear. She only had 107 days. Some of her argument is that if she had a full campaign season and she's going to have to primary, like people argued, against others, and she comes out strong, maybe her messaging changes. Maybe she learned from that practice one. Maybe when she gets the full campaign season, she can really lean all the way in. And so if we gave Trump that luxury to breathe, we need to give Kamala that luxury to breathe. I also think if she takes some strong policy stances and doesn't do what she tried to do last time, is like please everybody, that might be a better move for her, and everybody should have the capacity to do that. I also think she's playing this smart, and I do think she's definitely running, because if you asked me 6 months ago, I'd be like, no, but then she put out the book, and then the way that she has avoided talking about President Trump, I think, is a big deal and something that people should look at, because there's other governors, obviously Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, that are very vocal about President Trump. Kamala has been hesitant to say many things. She keeps it very light, a little bit on her book tour, but she's like, I'm not the president. Like, she keeps it very calm because she doesn't want to start this attack season. Well, there's many things to say about President Trump right now. You can go on just pick any topic that she can go off on, the same ones that Pritzker and Newsom are going off on. And I think the way that she's playing it is trying to be smart and strategic, which may be a good step for the Democratic Party. We have to just see where the policies lie.
It's funny that it's the two most likely or most high-profile candidates right now are the choice, the variety the Democratic Party offers you, from a black woman who's a California liberal to a white man who's a California liberal. Such diversity in the Democratic Party.
Pete Buttigieg seems like he's setting himself up to run, so add him in the mix. So I think we're going to see more and more voices step forward. Also, we might see young people make their voice clear within the Democratic Party, which I would love to see. Like,
do you have any young people left?
Well, I could.
They're all in the Republican Party.
Oh, stop! That's where you're going with that. I think that people should really listen to what young people are saying, and if young people are ready to speak, wherever you go find them, whether it's in the comments of the podcast, whether it's actually rallying and having conversation with young people. The establishment is the big issue that we disagree on. That shouldn't be the only people you're consulting about what the next steps will be, because Americans largely feel left out of that conversations on both sides of the aisle. So I think the Democratic Party, like I've said multiple times, has a lot of soul searching to do. But they should start with talking to different groups than the people who've been in government for the last 25 plus years. What do you think? Do you think she has a chance?
Oh, I think she had a chance at what? The presidency?
Like
or the
primary.
nomination?
Like, you think she'll even get past in primary?
I
the
think
candidate?
she could be the Democratic nominee because she just has such name recognition. I think it would be a huge mistake to nominate her because I think she has not shown any special ability. It'll be close, obviously. The election is always close now. She's not who I would want if I was a Democrat to go up against the likely Republican candidate, J.D. Vance. I don't think that's a wise choice at all. But it could be her.
We'll see.
Up next, President Trump is slapping more tariffs on Canada and pausing trade talks with them. It's over a Ronald Reagan ad our neighbors to the north ran over the weekend. We'll be right back.